Cravings are so misunderstood because most people view them as inconvenient urges to be ignored or resisted, especially when they point towards foods that we deem unhealthy or when they appear at odd times. But cravings are actually one of the most powerful real-time signals our body uses to communicate with us. They offer insight into what our body might need in that moment, whether it's more energy, a certain mineral, emotional comfort, or a physiological adjustment to hormonal changes. The trouble is, we tend to label cravings as bad and ourselves as lacking in willpower if we give in to them, which then feeds into a whole web of emotional turmoil because they aren't so much a choice as when they're coming from a place of need, your body will work really hard to make them irresistible. But if we shift our perspective, we can begin to decode them as helpful clues rather than problems to fix. For many, the amplification of these cravings with hormonal fluctuations can be really debilitating emotionally, which is something I will try and solve in a second. The thing about hormonal shifts is they often increase our need for certain nutrients, and those cravings are the way our body is trying to guide us towards meeting those needs. For example, pregnancy cravings often include sweets, salty foods, and even icy or cold textures. Those align with changes in electrolyte balance, increased energy demands, and a higher need for iron and glucose due to shifts in insulin sensitivity and blood volume expansion that happen naturally during pregnancy. Because a pregnant woman will double her blood volume, so she needs a huge amount more fluid for that, many more electrolytes to control where that fluid goes, and iron to support hemoglobin levels to oxygenate that blood that's now circulating. And often, red meat isn't high on your list if you've also got morning sickness. So the body sends out a signal of, give me crunchy ice, crisps and candy, which to me says, hey gal, what's your electrolyte status and iron situation? But to someone less fluent in random body language, they'll just start adding ice to bowls of cereal with soya sauce, or munching frozen peas with pieces of cheese and honey. And yes, I have seen both of those combinations. Another example would be during perimenopause, or the second half of the menstrual cycle, the luteal phase, when many women crave carbohydrates and chocolate. This reflects a natural drop in serotonin, our happy hormone, which chocolate will directly boost, as well as changes in insulin sensitivity, which totally alters how we use energy, plus a greater need for magnesium and B vitamins. If we don't meet those needs, then they become the drivers for the anxiety, overwhelm, and mood instability we label as classic PMS or perimenopause symptoms. But actually, your body is just saying, can we have more carbs for energy, chocolate for those minerals, and a direct uptick in happiness? Nothing bad about that when we break it down, right? What we need to find is a balance whereby we honour those suggestions from our system, but in a sustainable way for our emotional well-being. Cravings aren't a sign of weakness. They're often the body's way of providing useful feedback. When we take the time to understand what might be driving a craving, we can respond in a more supportive and informed way rather than reacting with guilt or restriction.